Hello and welcome LinkedIn to our fireside chat, the importance of prompting when using Copilot. My name's Natasha from Empower M365 and I'm very excited to be joined by Manesh from Microsoft. Manesh, can you
Yes.
just introduce yourself please?
Yes, thanks very much. Yeah, as Natasha said, Manesh Mystery from Microsoft. I'm one of the AI solution engineers at Microsoft UK, predominantly working in public sector, but I dip in every now and again into commercial and wherever I'm needed.
Perfect, thank you. Manesh, I
Mm.
believe that one of the first steps of adopting Copilot is for users to learn prompting. But with Microsoft introducing agents, the question I'm hearing quite a lot across industry is, do we still need to learn prompting? And my take on that is definitely yes. And I'd just like to see what your opinion is on that.
Do you know, I had firstly I agree with what you're saying here, and when I first got hold of Copilot and being told to use it and trying to get the most out of it as a service, um, I absolutely had to learn how to prompt, and it's not just about asking questions which we would from a human to human basis. What I learned is that there's also a way which you talk to Copilot, even though it's natural language.
Hmm.
I found that this is a skill when it comes to prompting that that I had to learn. And over the last couple of years, I still firmly agree that learning how to prompt is the thing that needs to be done. However, I had a little bit of a blip, Natasha, and there was one point when I just lost my confidence in it, and in terms of, yeah, have we has the prompting window been and gone now? And I've talked to a couple of my colleagues about it, and they're saying absolutely not. And my confidence went back up because this skill is still needed, and it doesn't matter. I mean, you talk about agents there. Even when it comes to agents, if you've not got the right instruction sets to create agents, and if you don't understand how to even talk to an agent, then it's just not going to work properly. So yeah, absolutely. For me, prompting is fundamental, and it still is, as to the way that we interact with the service. So yeah, no problems there. Little blip, but not anymore.
Good. Yeah, well, I spoke to Simon at I think 365 last week on our live about agents, and he was sort of saying you've got to have the right language. So it was just reinforced to say no
Yeah.
matter what type of Copilot you're using, having the right language from a user perspective and that interface is key.
Yeah, I'll look. It's and do you know what? I think going through the organizations I've worked with, not everybody, when it comes to prompting, there's going to be different skill sets as to how much people can do it and how in depth. And I found that there are keepers in any organization where they just understand it. They understand that conversation. They are creative and innovative enough to understand how to interact with the service. And I always say that if there are any creative writers in an organization, they love prompting, or they will love it if they've not done it already. So these are the people that you should be looking at and understanding. This prompt engineering, or this skill, is going to be highly valuable.
I think it's quite interesting that you say creative people because they're,
Mm.
in my experience, they're the people who go, oh no, we write ours from scratch or we don't use prompting or that sort of thing. Is that what you've experienced or not?
And it's from scratch. Yeah, I think that I think the creative people do things their own way.
Yeah.
I'm If I think about my own journey for prompting, um, I'm besides being a solution engineer, I'm also an artist. You can see the blurred the blurred paintings in the background, but that's been really key because as an artist, you do things your way. You have a specific style that you want to go through, and I found that in prompting, that's exactly the same thing, and that you will find that you do things your own way. And look, what I'm trying to do also is take the methodologies which are being used at Microsoft and the ones which we're advertising, and publishing, and being able to overlay my own methodology on top of that as I try to move forward and start to innovate from a prompting perspective.
Perfect. And do you think that you can explain or share? I think you've got some slides to share
Yeah,
on
I
the
do.
Microsoft methodology on prompting, what a good prompt looks like, how people can start and move forward to really
Mm.
getting a good prompt to get good outputs.
Yeah, absolutely. And this, I know, Natasha, you've seen this before loads and loads of times, but I still find this is fundamental to the way
Yeah.
that we have to approach prompting. And I know I always say this, I should change this slide, and I still haven't done it. It's just around what turns a good prompt into a great one. And the one on the left hand side is not a good one. So summarize my emails. Summarize what? What emails? Which ones? And there's so many questions. If you were to ask, if I was to ask you, Natasha, look at my mailbox and summarize it, where would you start with that? So so I found that a great prompt is when you start to focus on the outcome, and this is why the one on the right hand side is so good. And so from my emails over the past week, and all of a sudden we're saying, right, let's now focus on a specific date range. Then we we want to create a table from there as well, so a table of actions. So this is what we're really looking for. We're looking for that table of actions. We don't want to summarize and then try and find out the actions. We want those actions, and then we're going to include whose action it is, the person that's been assigned, and so on and so on. So there's so many different things that we can do in a prompt where we consider the outcome and not just the summarization. So that's the first part. So this is the first part to this. The next part is, how do you frame that? And how do you make sure is there a method that we can look at where we're using the right features? We understand what makes that great prompt, and the different ideas, and you know this one, and I'm sure, Natasha, that you use it when you're creating your own prompts as well. So thinking about that goal, context, source, and expectations. And it's a lot, it's a lot. But then we if we want to get good prompts and we want to get good responses, this is the way that we're going to be able to do it.
Yeah, agree. Totally agree.
So okay, so let's start. So we've got our goal there. So what's the response? What response do you want from Copilot? And this is for me, this is the purpose. And we've got to get this right, so that Copilot understands what that purpose is. And then the context is so important, because that context then drives the path the Copilot takes through the large language model when it starts to produce its content inside of there. So why do you need it, and who's involved? So thinking about personas inside of there, or particular um, setups which are required. Then we've got our source. Maybe it could be a couple of sentences which describe what that source is, or it could be samples of, or it could be content such as a file. It could be a meeting. It could be an email, or emails, or files. So many spreadsheets. So many different areas of data that we can look at, which will help augment the response from Copilot to say this is what we're looking for. So that, again, that source is so important. And then that last one is, what do we expect Copilot, or what do we expect the result to come back like inside there? Is it going to be a table? Is it going to be a paragraph? What kind of language are we going to be using? What kind of tone are we going to be using as well? And really important for me, as part of those expectations, is the constraints. What do we not want the service to do and to output? Sometimes we don't want a summary, so we've got to tell it, don't create a summary for me. Uh, so again, all of these different ingredients really do help. You ready for an example?
Ready.
Ready? Look at that. Hopefully you're not twiddling your thumbs. there, Natasha.
Just
And
relaxing, yeah, of course.
it's fine. Look, and it's really easy to forget, and it is after 2 years. You just have to get used. This is about muscle memory, and being able to understand what does that goal source context and expectations mean, and being able to apply it to the request that you put through in the prompt. So I've got this good, better, best here, which we deliver as part of our adoption material on adoption.microsoft.com. And inside of here we explain around, well, what does good look like, so help me prepare for an upcoming interview. And then we've got our goal there, which is by creating a list of actions. So there's our goal, and we've got our context. Right, okay, good, but can we get better? No, absolutely. So if we start looking at, firstly, let's define our persona. So even as part of that context, we're now saying that we're an HR manager, and that's brilliant, because again, we're guiding Copilot through the LLM to make sure it's producing the correct type of response back to us. So HR manager, looking at this AI engineer role, but if we look at the goals changed. So it's not just about creating a list of questions; it's prepare a list of appropriate questions for the candidate. So again, that's really good. It's still, for me, it still raises some questions, because again, after 2 years, um, we have to be more specific. And I think if we were talking to another human, maybe we'd be able to say, yes, they would understand the context based on what I've said, what appropriate means, and what does candidate mean in here. But in my experience, if we want to get consistent results, it's the best prompt on the right hand side is where we feed it enough information, or the right information, to be able to produce those results. So I really like this one. So first, same thing, HR manager, set the persona. We understand that it's an AI engineer role, but the bit in purple is the source. So we're now giving it a source of information in terms of the candidate CV and the position. So we think about the job description which the candidate is going for. So now we're adding all of that information as our source, and we've added in that expectation. So at the end there, so that I can determine the candidate's fit against the position, and that's brilliant, because in on the left hand side, good, we're relying on the HR manager to understand, to know, yes, as an HR manager, I'm looking for all this information, but we don't put that down in the prompt. But once we start to explain more, using that goal source context and expectations, then it's going to make that output a lot more accurate. It will make it more meaningful, and we'll be able to ask a lot more questions around it. So the best one for me is that one on the right hand side. Agreed?
I think, yeah, I totally agree. But I think it's important to say to people that you can start off with good, refine it to better, and then go for best. So you don't worry if you don't get best straight away. You can work on that and reiterate the prompts as you're going through.
Oh yeah, and I think, Natasha, one thing that you and I have been on are these prompt hackathons,
Yeah.
and I think it's been so heartwarming and really, really interesting that if when it comes to adoption, if people understand that type of framework, and they understand how they're going to get the best out of it, I'd like to think that they could move from that good and into best really quickly, because that's what we were seeing
Yeah, that
on
is
those
always it. Yeah.
hackathons.
And out of the sessions as well, it's just people's mind going from not really sure what Copilot can do for me to that spark of going, actually, it could do this process for me. And them
Yeah,
trying it in the session and then taking that away and, as you say, getting to best as quickly as possible. But, just
yeah.
seeing value from a couple of hours from Copilot, from a session is fabulous.
Oh yeah, yeah. Yes, it this is it's one session where you can start to see who who's going to really embrace how this works, because we've had so many years of being told this is how you do a search, and we
Yeah.
understand how to do it. This is how we work in Outlook or in Word, and now we're asking people to step up and start to understand that interaction with Copilot. Really, really interesting.
But it's,
I've got
it's weird though, Manesh. If I
mm,
think about the promptathons that we've done and things, the people who step up are not always the type of role that you would have thought to be in that position.
yeah.
It's usually the opposite. Like the CIOs are stepping up, the governance people, the compliance people want to take the lead and control it within their organization. They're the ones that I'm seeing sort of taking lead, which is really refreshing and sort of driving that innovation for organizations.
Yeah. And I've seen something even better,
Go
Natasha.
on
I've
then. Go on then.
right. So I've seen, based on my experience and just working in local government, that I had a workshop, and inside that workshop there was business analysts there were technical
Yep.
people there, and that there was, from a social care perspective, there was also an assessor,
Mm.
and it was the assessor who uses the technical, or the digital services, the technology services, the M365 applications and the case management systems. She uses all of that, but she was the one in the room who just took this completely forward. She pushed so far in terms of what the service can do. So I agree. It is, sometimes it's not the people we think are going to be the best ones. So for me, the best people are not the technical ones, not at all. And if I think about the opportunities from a client perspective, where we've seen the most traction is not just talking to the technologists. It's talking to the business,
So
and bringing in the business into the conversation.
yeah, no, 100%. I had a use case last week, Manesh, and it actually made my heart warm. I'm going to get quite emotional on this one. So it was a paediatrician doctor who was seeing a little boy, and the little boy had been taken into hospital several times because he wasn't taking his inhaler. So when the paediatrician spoke to the little boy, he asked him what his favourite cartoon was. And he said, "Oh, I like Winnie the Pooh." So what the paediatrician did was use the NHS asthma leaflet, inputted it into Copilot, and asked it to write a story on Winnie the Pooh using its inhaler to write a story. So he said to the little boy, "Look, Winnie the Pooh uses the inhaler, and this is why it's important for you to use it." And the little boy said, "Yes, but my gran reads that to me in Hindu." So he used Copilot, translated it back into Hindu from English, printed it out, and the little boy could take the story home for his grandma to read to him on a night of why Winnie the Pooh needs to take his inhaler on a night and why it's important. Now, that use case is fabulous and
Yeah.
could only come from a frontline worker. And when it was Malcolm that told me, when Malcolm told me this story, I thought,
Mm.
wow, that's really pulling on my heartstring, because it's a use case that you wouldn't really think of.
Yeah. Yeah. And
It's
look
awesome.
for and what I've noticed, Natasha, is with one of the questions which I ask about these services, because at Microsoft we're constantly moving forward, and I think about the other solution engineers and the technical capabilities that they have, and it is we're very feature led.
Yeah,
And what my approach to this is, I've now stopped going through features, and in a real mad dash, my uh, point of reference now is, okay, great feature. Now, if I was to give this to a social worker or to an assessor, how is it going to benefit them?
yeah,
Or if I'm going to give it to a nurse or a doctor, how is it going to benefit them? And I love that, because that's just reframing
it is.
what we should be doing, and it's how we should be looking at it. Is that focusing on the outcome and the people, not
It's
just on the feature?
Yeah, and I totally agree. And talking about features, I'm looking forward to the memory coming in. Just
Oh,
because if I could start having a conversation with it, and then I get waylaid, I can always come back and continue that that sort of conversation. But
yeah,
then for a large organisation who are trying to share prompts with their peers, you know, having Teams prompt now coming into the tenants is good for the people, because that's going to accelerate adoption across organizations by just those two features. But I take your point, it's all about people and how those features relate to those people. It's not just about, you know, 10 features coming out and here they are. So it's good to hear you say that, Manesh.
No, look, and we've in terms of the narrative which we're putting forward at Microsoft, we absolutely talk about Copilot and we talk about agents, but the only way that this works best is human ambition. And this is the bit which I get really, I'm really invested in this when it comes to human ambition, and that's the bit which completes the formula, and we need to have that in inside of there. So yeah,
it
really good.
does.
I'm glad we agree.
Yeah, hello, that's twice. What's going on? So Manesh,
Yes.
you talk about users, people. You know, what would you say your top 3 tips for users to achieve value from Copilot are?
Okay. Well, if you closed out the well, I had another example we can go through later if you want.
No, come back to your 2 example first, then we'll come back to that.
Right. Okay. Because I've got some. I got some good ones for you, and I can even talk about Copilot memory as well, and some other things which are coming on. Yeah, so I just wanted to show one more example, because as we've gone through the whole goals, context, source, and expectations, or GCSE approach, I wanted to apply it to the stuff that I do. And Natasha, you know that when it comes to prompting, I go complex. And for me, it's been really important that if we're replicating and understanding human complexity and human process and how humans work inside of a process, then we're not going to get to a couple of lines of a prompt. And that's why I I love being able to expand the scope and to think much wider in terms of the prompting I put together. So this one here is one which can be done from inside the free version of Copilot Chat. So the M365 Copilot Chat. So M365copilot.com as the URL. But if you go there, log in using your Enter ID, you can start to do this. Yes, you can do. Excuse me. You can do the simple prompts, but I love this. So this is the generation of a lesson plan, and for me, a lesson plan isn't just about the lesson plan. It's about setting up that lesson plan, and then it's about creating the questions or a quiz at the end of it. So there's so many different elements that we forget because we're just focusing on one thing. So I'll take you through these very quickly because I know it's a lot of text on the screen, but basically you can see my color coordination when it comes to that whole goal, context, source, and expectations. But you'll see I've got my prompt purpose at the top inside of there. Then I define the subject matter. So in this case, it's critical thinking and customer service. I know it's a bit of a bland a bland subject, but the idea is that you change the purple bit. That's your source. That's you inside of there. Then context is around the language level. So again, I've set this to organization employee. We could change that to it's going to be for an 8-year-old, 9-year-old, 12. It's going to be for somewhere where English is a second language, and so on. So we can change that inside of there. And the final one is creating that synopsis. The whole point of this is you give Copilot a framework to work from. And so once we've got that framework, we can then go and create the lesson plan itself. But there's less text here because we've done a lot of the upfront work. So this second prompt is we refer back to the synopsis, that we've got our purpose, we've got our subject, we've got our language level, which have all been defined before. But what we're just changing here is how long is that session length going to be? Is it 30 minutes? Is it an hour? 1.5? Is it a day, 2 days? So we define how much time we have, and then we ask it to create that lesson plan based on the subject matter. And because this is all in the same session, it understands, it knows what subject matter means. I don't have to redefine what that means inside of here. And then the final piece is the quiz. So generate your quiz. And again, the green bit is what's the number of questions? What is the difficulty? Again, I've used a very bland version of medium based on a low, medium, and high. Okay, it doesn't mean anything, but the idea, I want people to actually change this. This is me putting forward an idea, a proof of concept to put a quiz together. And then we describe the quiz properties. Is it multiple choice? Are we looking for a discussion? But whatever happens, we want to get the answers, and we need to check that the answers are correct. So that's what that lesson plan's all about. So if we go inside of the M365 Copilot chat, so the first thing we do is we generate that synopsis. So I've just pasted this in. What we're able to do is share these prompts. So we just need to click a button and we can put that prompt straight into the chat window. But so the first thing is we create the synopsis, and it's really good. And it gives me the links to what critical thinking is all about from a customer service perspective. And
Yeah.
then I've got this edit pages section where I can now start to produce all my to have all my information in one place, so not just in the chat. And then I carry on to the lesson plan, and same thing. We go through. We just change the hours, the timing on there. So now we have a lesson plan. So we've got all the different sections. We have the objectives, the activities, the questions. So we're always measuring engagement as part of that lesson plan, and we've done that as part of this setup. And same thing, we can now edit in pages, and because we're in the same session, it just appends it to the same page. And the idea here is that we're able to put all of this together, review it, and start to create our lesson plan in real life, not just this draft. We can also do that expansion. So being able to say to as a trainer, I want to expand a specific section. So maybe there weren't enough notes, and so I can expand it. So again, we're just now having this. It's great. Natasha, I love this is because
It is
we've given all
fabulous.
this information up front. Yeah, we've given all this information up front, and we can ask it to expand. Now, in that final piece is we get it to generate the quiz, and again, now again based on context of the session, we just need to put in the number of questions, difficulty, and then it goes away and puts those. Not only puts the questions together, it also gives us the answer sheet, so we can check the answers and validate them and make the changes as we need it. And and that's the final piece. We just do editing pages, and off we go. So that's really it, Natasha. I just wanted to show that
Really good.
we can. Yeah, I'm very proud of this one, but I can show that we can get complex even in the free version, and it's not just about a couple of lines. Look how detailed we can get as part of a response if we just understand the best way to prompt and get responses out of Copilot.
Yeah, and I think that's a great example. As you say, you don't need the paid version to be able to see
No.
value. Your users can be using it to deliver value outside of the M365 applications.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you mentioned earlier about you do a lot of work with public sector. What could you give us an example of the most valuable thing that Copilot's delivered or is delivering for them?
Yeah. I mean, from a public sector and local government perspective,
Yeah.
I have seen social care as being number one on the list. In the councils that I've worked with, this is the area where where a lot of budget is going already, and they need. There's so much work that needs to be done to help the social care teams and the directorates. So this is where from a local gov perspective, I've been sat down and working with them and working on some amazing projects. It really these are life-changing projects when it comes to how prompting and in my case, Copilot, being able to support them. And it's not about connecting into case management systems, although that's what one of the technical things in the background. It goes back to the outcome and being able to take maybe just a few PDFs or case notes and being able to produce a narrative is it to for process efficiency. So a process which may have taken 12 hours to do, if we can get that down to 2 hours, how many more cases can be processed? How many more people in the vulnerable people in the community can be supported because of that? And so this is where I've been seeing so much effort being done. And even next week, I'm going over to a council just to sit down and do a day in the life of the different types of processes that they're carrying out. And in councils there's so many different areas, but that is the one that they're focused on, laser focused on at the moment. So yeah, social
That's
care.
what I love to do. I love to, look at someone's process and then
Yeah,
map how Copilot's going to assist them and watch the value be delivered. It's really rewarding, isn't it? So
yeah,
rewarding.
it
So
it, it, it is, and it's not just mapping out the process is one thing. It's understanding how generative AI will really help them. So we you've got to think about the reasoning over large amounts of data.
yeah.
That's something that Copilot can do really well, given the right instructions to do that. And then it's about producing the content in a specific style or language, which again is it takes us hours to do. So even things like that. That's the whole for me. That's the generative AI approach. Thinking about dynamic decision trees as well, understanding what kind of processes should trigger another. All of this is really important, and I've even noticed going into client organizations and talking about their processes, Natasha, and maybe you'll tell me something different. But when I've gone in, it's great that we understand the process. But sometimes what happens is they understand that the process doesn't work, and it's not working correctly, and they have to revisit the process even before any generative or AI can be applied on top of it. So it does start to open people's eyes as to what they need to do to make their processes more efficient.
Yeah, and I think it's a good thing because their process needs improving even before generative AI. It just needs improving. So to be able
Yeah,
to maximize the benefit of Copilot, then they have to get the process right. And if that's revisiting and redesigning it because it's not been looked at for 10 years, that's a good thing.
it is. Look, and sometimes there are things which you wouldn't assume are things which generative AI could do or could help with. And the one that I've been looking at since last year is around role play simulation.
Hmm.
Simulate a scenario for training purposes and drop somebody in that scenario and tell them, right, this is your outcome. I want you to talk to this person in this simulation and get to that outcome. And we you're putting your blockers inside of there. You say what the you give the mood of the person, the personality, and maybe there are some other traits which that person has and history which you need to consider to get to the outcome. So people don't realize it, but role play simulation is also another good one inside
Yeah,
there.
really good. And I think, the title of this LinkedIn Live was the importance of prompting when using Copilot. And I think, it goes to say that I think both of us are right because we definitely need it, as we've just spoke
Mm,
about. It's all about the information putting in to get the information out. So we're
yeah.
sort of coming to an end now, but it would be
Mm,
great to get your sort of view on the top 3 tips for users that you feel that would best generate value from Copilot.
yeah. Right. So one, I've made a list. So the first one is we've got to get past the so what moment. And great, it can summarize a meeting, it can do some meeting notes, but we need it to do more than that. It's not about Copilot or this a generative AI service being a search engine. It's not a search engine. So we need to get past that. So like I said, understanding that it can do reasoning over large amounts of data, the content that it can produce as well, the fact that it can change our processes from minutes or hours from days. So we need to consider all of those, and it's not easy, but the value that you get at the end of it after going through that process and going through an organization like yours, Natasha, to help with that. The second one I've got is keeping up to date on the features, and I know this is a challenging one, but understanding you can, from an admin side, you go to message center, that we're releasing a lot of material onto, from a Microsoft perspective, onto LinkedIn, and that we're now, the expectation is that you'll start to see things happening on a per seat 6-week basis around that time. So always keeping in touch of what's going on, and also the roadmap. I always use that roadmap. Even me, I have a feed, so I look at that feed every day to see what's new and in terms of the roadmap. Even though I can see things internally, this is really good from a public perspective. So keeping up to date, because there's some fantastic stuff like the the Copilot memory. There's Copilot voice. There's the ability to create a podcast from one of your documents coming inside of there. And there's also another one, which is Outlook inbox priority. Prioritize my inbox. I've been using it for the last week. I love it. It is changed the way, it's changed the way that I look at my inbox, and I now know what's important to me, and that stays at the top. Really, really good. And the final one is just around Copilot Analytics, and that it's great that we want to give the Copilot capability out, but we need to be able to measure it and understand the benefits that we're getting as an organization. So being able to drill down into specific departments, to start looking at the workloads which they're using and where are the gaps, and then using these adoption services to support those gaps. So for me, those are the top 3.
Perfect. I think some of them I would agree. And I'll just add on to the users: don't be scared. Try things. You know, Copilot's moving at a day, improving daily. So choose a task that you repeat, you know, several times, and try and get Copilot to take away that mundane tasks. And share your prompts with your peers. You know, if you can't see Teams prompt in your tenant, it will soon be arriving. So you'll be able to share it there. And I think you touched upon this, Manesh, but evolve your knowledge. Things are moving fast. Attend webinars, LinkedIn Lives, just to try and stay ahead. And then I think I would say, from an organization perspective, policy must be up to date and relevant. You know, people need to be able to be creative, but organizations need to be protected. And just really ensure your people understand what Copilot is, and like prompting is important and is going to show the value to your users. And most important, Manesh, is measure value and success. And that can be shared across the organization, just really to drive adoption, because success breeds success. Cheesy line, but I know, I like that one.
I know, it's fine. It's all good. It's all good. Really, really good. All good value.
So, Manesh, thank you very much for joining me today. It's been wonderful to see and speak to you. And everyone, thanks for joining. Have a great day, and we'll catch up soon. Thanks, Manesh. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks.